Hey there, my name is Anthony Romano, and this is the best video on YouTube about prolonged fasting combined with resistance training, okay? I haven't shot the rest of it, but I'm assuming that it's going to be the best one by the time I'm done. As far as information goes in this video, I'm going to give you a bunch of tips and a bunch of information about how this process actually works, okay? I've been doing this for a long time, and I have plenty of experience with, everything in this area, so stay tuned. So, you found yourself interested in prolonged fasting. A lot of people, because I'm trying to, understand the perspective of my audience here, a lot of people who get into this are people who are somewhat interested in ketogenic dieting. Maybe they got in through intermittent fasting, or maybe they got in through other, biohacking type stuff. But I'm not going to tell you about all the benefits of fasting because there's plenty of other videos on that, okay? There's cellular cleansing, right? Autophagy. There's plenty of fat to burn. There's more metabolic adaptations that come as a result of prolonged fasting, right? Because it's essentially a very, very deep keto state that you're getting into. So for the people who aren't caught up on this, essentially, fasted state is a very much amplified form of the ketogenic state, right? This is another reason why a lot of people trip up here, and the people who watch me regularly know this, and they're going to hate me for saying it a billion times, but keto is simply the absence of sugar. Keto is not high fat. Keto is not, low protein. That's a different variant of keto that will result in more ketones, but that's not necessarily what keto is. Keto is simply not eating sugar. And when you're not eating anything, you're not eating sugar, and you're also not eating anything else. So this is amplifying the demand on your energy needs, and it's also amplifying the depth that you are in ketosis. So essentially, that is the background, okay? Let's get into fasting and resistance training. So I've done multiple multi-day fasts. I've been playing around with this for a long time. I've been doing keto for 8 years. I always throw around. And essentially, when combined with resistance training, you can combine prolonged fasting with resistance training. However, there's a certain point where this may not be optimal. So in my experience, for fasts that have gone several days, the first few days are always easier to do this, especially if you find yourself eating more OMAD or 1 meal a day style, of a plan. Those types of people will find training fasted for 2-3 days very, smooth, okay? It won't be much problems there for people who are already used to a, longer window of time between their eating. So people with shorter eating frequency will already see, more smoothness when it comes to resistance training. But, for people who just do intermittent fasting or something, they will not have as easy of a time. Ketogenic dieters will have an easier time as well because their body's already in this keto state and may already be, metabolically adapted, fat adapted, metabolically flexible, whatever you want to call it. So I'll address some questions here. Some of the common questions before I get deeper into that, okay? Common questions: will you lose muscle? No, okay? There's very, very, specific situations where you might lose muscle in this, but for the broad sweeping answer is no, okay? You're not gonna lose muscle, and here's the reason why. The reason why is ketones. So even though I'm not throwing up studies in this video, I'm not pulling these facts out of my ass, okay? These are very easy to verify claims that you can find on Google, but ketones are protective of muscle tissue, okay? Maybe not even directly, maybe through some other indirect mechanism that science hasn't completely worked out, but whenever ketones are present, the rate of muscle being used as fuel goes way down because ketones are a preservation fuel. They're meant to signal, hey, the deeper you're in this state, the more we're gonna dive into the fat stores and reduce the amount of muscle tissue being used. And if you believe in any of the premises about doesn't have to be, related to spirituality, but if you believe in anything in evolution, if you believe even the fact that evolution exists, which there's plenty of logical reasons as to why evolution exists in some way, shape, or form, if you believe in any one of those premises, it makes sense that this would be the mechanism our body uses, because if we adapt to things, right, and the ones that don't adapt die, there's a very little chance that our species would have survived if they burned through all their muscle tissue after days of not eating, okay? The world is a harsh place, and thousands of years ago, it was even harsher. So if you couldn't get food for a week and you were to burn up all your muscle tissue because there was no mechanism of higher elevated ketones, then we wouldn't be here watching this video, okay? So hopefully that wasn't too derivative, but essentially, if we didn't have this mechanism in place of ketones signaling to, maybe not even signaling, but through some indirect means reducing muscle tissue breakdown, then we wouldn't be here, because we wouldn't be able to survive longer than a couple days, right? It makes sense. If you go out, look for food, or you try to waste all your energy hunting something or gathering something, if there's nothing there, or if the animal gets away, then you're done. That's it, okay? So clearly that was not the case, and if you're somebody who accepts the fact that humans adapt or they die, then this inherently should make sense to you, okay? So you won't lose muscle. However, if you're somebody who is, doing a 7-day fast, for example, and you are just beating your ass in the gym, beating your own ass, okay? And I don't know, not like exercise, not like that would be an exercise you're doing, beating your own ass, but you were physically training to a lot of exertion, and you do this every day, yeah, you may lose some muscle tissue because there's not enough amino acids in your body to replenish, okay? So if you go, day 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4, 5 when you're training, your body is going to have enough energy from ketones and stored body fat. Even if you're somebody who's very lean, there's plenty of calories worth of body fat on the body. This is why the body stores fat. It's high calorie. It's 9 calories per gram, okay? So somebody who is, going at it in the gym for a multiple day fast, right? Let's call it a week fast, and they're training 6 days out of that 7 days. After a certain point, there's not going to be too much protein floating around. So you're certainly not going to see any growth, but you might not necessarily see any decay either, okay? There's probably going to be small amounts of muscle loss because, like I said, you're breaking things down and there's nothing there to repair, okay? So your body will probably turn that broken down protein into glucose just to get you energy, because your body's going to change priorities and just care about surviving at that point, okay? A lot of logical evolutionary, theory applies to what the body will do, because if you think about it, if you accept the premise that, the basic premise of evolution, which is the ones that didn't adapt die and the ones that do adapt are here, if you accept that, everything that makes logical sense in general is what we are seeing in scientific results. So, like I said, if you're training and increasing the demand on your body to a point where it's way too much, your body's just going to fold its hand and care about survival. And it won't care about muscle preservation as much, but it will still try to minimize it via the high ketones. But if somebody is, training in a humane amount, and here's the thing too, with a prolonged fast, you're going to eventually feel tired if you are somebody who's new to this. If you're somebody who, is pushing it too hard, you will feel tired, because this is your body trying to down-regulate how much activity you're doing. And it does this through several mechanisms. One of them I talk about commonly is, the bonking of blood sugar, okay? When your blood sugar goes too low, which is very common in newbie keto dieters or newbie fasters, when your blood sugar goes too low, you actually still have plenty of carb and fat energy in your body. Your body just trying to get you to chill out because it's afraid you're going to run out. See, it's another one of those mechanisms that is influenced by evolutionary, theory, okay? Because, again, your body is simply trying to maximize survival. It gets to a point where it perceives that it's under stress, and it can persevere for a certain point, but after a while, it just wants you to get out of there and make it to the next week, okay? So, can you build muscle on a fasting and resistance training plan? You absolutely can, but there is some careful tweaking needed here. So whereas with the previous example, I was talking about a 7-day fast, right? A week fast, right? Of course, after day 4, 5, 6, you're going to feel tired. Your body's going to try to get you to shut down, okay? This is what a lot of people feel when they're doing these long fasts, and that's perfectly normal because your body is essentially trying to get you to not be too particularly active, but it can still be more active if necessary, right? That's adaptation again. Evolution applies. But And I'm not trying to be a zealot with evolution. I'm just saying it's a, a premise that gives us a lot to work with as far as understanding this. So, can you build muscle? Yes, I would say the shorter the amount of days we're talking here with a prolonged fast is definitely more conducive to muscle building because it allows you to refuel with amino acids. But again, let's look at this through the lens of evolution, right? Adapt or die. If you have somebody in a primal society who is out there scavenging or hunting for food and they don't come back with something, that's fine. Day 1, day 2, and day 3, they fail. So they're now 3 days fasted. Day 4, if they make a big catch and eat an entire buffalo or eat a load of buffalo, because an entire buffalo lasts a long time for them, based on what I've read. If they eat, 500 grams worth of protein, right? Just a huge amount, and it's combined with buffalo fat, so it's slow digesting. It's going to stay in their system a long time, and they ate it raw, so they can hold so much of it, whatever. All these are the things, okay? When you take that person, their body is going to be able to build muscle, because if it wasn't able to rebound from that time of scarcity, again, we wouldn't be here. If we had a diminished ability to build muscle after a fasted state, we wouldn't have adapted. And here's the actual mechanism how. So again, I'm not going to throw up a study, but here's the mechanism. There is the main muscle building pathway in your body, which is called Mtor, mammalian target of rapamycin. So essentially, this is the master regulator of muscle building. And there are some things that can stimulate it, insulin being one of them, and leucine being another one. But when we have mTOR constantly being activated, it kind of loses sensitivity. That's not quite the way that it would be phrased from somebody who is, an expert in mTOR, right? Studies it all day long, because I know a lot about that, but I simply am not somebody who is, in a lab studying it all the time and what ticks it and what doesn't, okay? When you have mTOR being fired off all the time, it essentially loses sensitivity, okay? It's kind of like an insulin sensitivity, where if you're firing it all the time, your body is going to diminish how sensitive you are to insulin because it's gradually shutting off. So when you have somebody who is fasting, right, particularly the OMAD crowd, the 1 meal a day, or the, 2 days off, 1 day on, like the 2-day fast, 1 day on, those type of people, that's probably much more optimal for building muscle on a prolonged fasting plan, because you're stretching mTOR and you're letting it elastic back. You're basically increasing your sensitivity by fasting for a prolonged period, and then from there, your body has to again adapt and make sure it hammers home the efficiency. There's a video I made with Golden Era Bookworm on Vince Gironda's steak and eggs diet. And it was essentially one where it mimics this carb backloading effect, because you have, insulin sensitivity being increased from fat burning in the daytime, and then nighttime when you slam a bunch of steak and eggs, right? Or, high quality protein, not necessarily in the nighttime, but when you eat that, your insulin sensitivity and your sensitivity to muscle building pathways like mTOR are enhanced in some way, because if it was going off all the time, you lose sensitivity to it. This is a universal concept, okay? If somebody pokes you, okay, you're going to be jolted by it, right? Your attention will be caught. But if you just leave a finger there, after a while, if somebody's just poking you, okay, and they hold their finger there, you're going to get used to it, okay? So it's a shitty example, but you get the point. Stimulus at first is highly sensitive. When you wake up in the morning, you're more insulin sensitive because you just slept for 8 hours. You didn't eat. You didn't have an insulin rise. As things are a sine wave, okay? Things are essentially, this yin and yang all the time. And again, the sine wave's a great example, because if you just have something elevated all the time, it's eventually going to get to a point where it tips over and crashes, okay? And you're going to get less muscle building from jacking up mTOR all the time. This is why, if you apply that to insulin, if you have insulin going all the time, you're simply going to store fat, okay? You're not going to store muscle, because it's not an efficient use of that insulin. So hopefully, again, that wasn't too derivative. But let's get into how does training actually feel when you're prolonged fasted. When you are on a prolonged fast, you will gain, certain elements of mental clarity, performance enhancement, and this is mainly due to ketogenic dieting and the ketogenic state from a fast, okay? I'm trying to exemplify this right now with, my ideas that I'm throwing at you. But overall, the ketogenic state is going to be the primary performance enhancer because you can achieve deeper levels of ketosis through a fasted state. Now, you don't necessarily have to prioritize high ketones all the time, but simply being in the fasted state is going to throw you in the deep end of the pool. So at first, training will probably feel more energetic, and here is why. The reason why is everybody looks at this through the lens of calories. I often say that keto and, picking foods that will be less insulinogenic, which is essentially what ketogenic dieting is the quality approach, the qualitative approach, right? And calories is the quantitative approach. They're two sides of the same coin, okay? They work in tandem with one another, but each can veto the other out, okay? If you eat a calorie deficit of just sugar, you're not going to burn as much fat as somebody who eats more calories from foods that produce less insulin. So again, trying to stay back on topic. How does it feel? It feels better at first because you have enough energy provided from your body fat and the ketones that produces. Why? Why do you have more energy from that ketone production? Well, it's because when you're not eating anything, yes, you're eating 0 calories, but your metabolic rate is the same. If you're somebody who burns 3,000 calories a day, okay, that means your body is going to use 3,000 calories to power itself. What you're doing by fasting and hopping into the fasted state, because the first part is getting into it, depleting your liver glycogen. This is the same with the keto diet. Once you're in that state, after you've hopped into it, essentially, your body is still getting that 3,000 calories. Your body is getting the exact same amount of food. It's simply eating the food that you stored on your body. Okay, so this is why people feel good, because their body is slowly eating little bits and trickling that into the body, okay, into the bloodstream, getting you this energy boost, those types of things. It's slowly eating itself, and it's eating the part of itself that sole purpose is to be eaten, okay? Let me reiterate. Your body fat, part of its purpose is to simply be a store of food. That is what body fat is. That is why we store so much of it. That is why nobody wants it. It doesn't look as pleasant, is because it's a survival mechanism. Again, drawing back to evolution. And why would we store fat? Because it's a preferred fuel source. It's not necessarily preferred in terms of which one's going to be used first. That would be carbohydrates. So I'm not trying to, twist things there. But it's simply the preferred fuel source in the event that there's no food, right? It's the higher quality stuff that you save aside for when it's truly necessary. Okay? Now, carbohydrates are still high quality in their own way in terms of quick digesting speed and all that other stuff. I'm not roasting carbs just because I'm, keto guy. It's simply that it's undeniable that our body, which our brain is composed of almost entirely fat, our body can store endless amounts of fat. Fat has more than double the amount of energy per gram, and I'm spitting out this video at you with minimal, disfluencies in my speech and all that stuff, is because fat is the preferred fuel, and when you allow yourself to tap into it, you will achieve these benefits. Prolonged fasting is a better way to do that as well, but it's simply not as practical for a lot of people, and I don't even do it all the time. So back to how this feels, okay? The reason it's going to feel okay is because you're still eating the same amount of food every day that your body needs. It's simply that food is coming from your body, the part of your body that is designed to be eaten, okay? What would we be able to accomplish if we weren't able to store food? Think about that. Again, back to evolution. We wouldn't be able to advance if we weren't able to store for tomorrow, okay? We would die out very quickly. So training at first will feel good because you're burning through these stores. And towards the end, it's not like you're going to be tired because, there's simply no calories, and people look at it again through the lens of quantity. They look at it through the lens of, my body is just, I didn't have 3,000 calories today. That's what I normally eat. And then I had day 2 and day 3 and day 4. And I guess on day 5, I was just, 15,000 calories short. That's not what it is. It's simply that it's now a qualitative decider, not a quantitative decider that you feel weaker, slower, tired. So the reason you feel tired after day 5 isn't because you're short 15,000 calories. It isn't because of the quantitative. It's because a qualitative signal has been sent to say, hey, we still are going to be taking up 3,000 calories a day. maybe it'll do a little less because it's trying to ration things out more. So that may be the quantitative side that is reducing how you feel. But it's mostly because your body is trying to fold its hand. It's trying to make you more tired, make you incentivized to do less activity. Capiche? So it's partly a quantitative and partly a qualitative consideration. It's not simply the quantitative. People look at quantitative like it's the all-seeing eye of everything. It is equally complicit in what's going on as the qualitative. So yes, your metabolic rate will downregulate the longer you fast, okay? What I mean by that is if you're naturally burning 3,000 calories a day, maybe by day 20, you're going to be burning 2,500 because your body is not trying to use up all its fat stores more than it has to per day. That makes sense? It's trying to use only as necessary, nothing more, nothing less. And the signal that your body is going to tell itself is, hey, I'm going to make you feel more tired. The reptilian brain is going to say, I'm going to make you feel more tired and, release hormones in relation to that, to those goals, so that you don't do as much activity more than you have to, right? That's why people who are in nutrient deficient states, right, not ketogenic, because ketogenic, if somebody has, high fat soluble vitamin content in their fat stores, low toxins in their fat stores that are being released in the bloodstream, they will feel fantastic. And either way, on a ketogenic metabolism in that deep of a state, most people do feel fantastic because they have an abundance of energy. Like, think about it. Your body doesn't have to burn through that much fat to get your energy requirement, right? Especially if you came from a carbohydrate diet. Because again, your body now has more than double the amount of energy per gram of fuel used, right? If people are coming from a carb diet, now they're switching to 9 calories a gram. That's double and a little bit more of calories per gram of food. So it's not too much extra effort from your body to break that down. But how does it feel? It'll feel good at first, but after a while, you're going to tank a bit. You are inevitably going to tank a bit because, like I said, your body's going to try to turn off your activity. Not necessarily because you're out of fuel. It's simply because your body's trying to get you to drive slower. Okay? So I'll say that one more time because that's kind of the consensus of this. It's not that you're going to feel tired because you're out of fuel. It is that you're going to feel tired because your body is trying to incentivize you to do less. And there is going to be a little bit of element of downregulated fuel. But in this case, it's more so the quality. Okay? Now, pitfalls, of course, are those, because I had a note here that said pitfalls. The pitfall is going to be overexertion, okay? In the first few days, you'll have an abundance of energy, especially if you have electrolytes. That's a key point, and I was going to drop that in, later on. But anybody who's doing prolonged fasting should already know about electrolytes. You have to be consuming them. This is essentially key, okay? So I'm assuming people here have done even intermittent fasting, 1-day fast, something like that. You should already know about electrolytes. This is key, and don't attempt any of this stuff without that because you're going to feel like shit. Now, let's go back to the muscle building, okay? I want to top off by saying with muscle building on a prolonged fasting plan, it has to revolve around the stretching of the Mtor pathway. It has to be sensitizing and then capitalizing on that sort of fasted state and building state, right? And again, the reason I want to hammer home the reason why that works is because, like I said, your body's a survival machine. It cares about survival and reproduction. And of course, I've tried to list the scientific mechanisms behind every single theory that I'm claiming and putting out here, because this is very well researched, well documented stuff. But the reason why, even though it seems contrary to belief, it seems counterintuitive, the reason why you're able to build muscle on a prolonged fasting plan, where you're technically eating less calories per week than somebody who eats every day, is because you're increasing your sensitivity. You're tweaking things on the qualitative side, not simply the quantitative side. The quantitative side works, but so does the qualitative side. Okay? So that's essentially this main video on prolonged fasting and resistance training. Of course, I could give more tips on exercises, etc., training styles. To summarize, I'll say stuff that isn't exactly joint intensive, right? Huge ass, heavy ass lifting. maybe that's not the best idea because you could hurt yourself, especially when you're trying to get rid of things in your body. You don't want to incentivize your body to rebuild. That's the worst thing you can do. But you can do pump style training, lower weight, right? Lower weight style training. And you know what? Here's a freebie for you, okay? There's something in the body, a process called the Cori cycle. This is essentially where the body can convert lactic acid into sugar for the brain. And I thought of this just at the end because for somebody who is fat adapted, this is often why people will feel better after some resistance training, especially if they didn't kill themselves, is because after a couple days of fasting, you will be more adapted than, the average bear. So then if you have the Cori cycle playing in your favor, you will get better blood glucose. You will get blood glucose delivery to the brain via the Cori cycle. So essentially, you will get the recycling of the lactic acid you're going to be producing during resistance training. And that often results in people feeling better. I mean, you can't measure this by looking at somebody. It's simply that somebody who's in a fasted state will notice a peak in their emotion, and how they feel, and well-being because of this process that we know goes on. So, additional benefit is the Cori cycle and recycling of lactic acid that would be produced in a workout. Okay, so that was this video. It was extensive, it was informative, and I threw a lot at you. Come back to this video whenever you're trying to understand these concepts, okay? And the rational bases behind them, okay? What I want you to do now is go to my other videos and watch them, especially if you're new to fasting, prolonged fasting, ketogenic dieting. Watch these things because I try to give out as much information as I can. And although every video isn't as much of a gold mine of facts being thrown at you in hopefully a coherent manner, there's plenty to learn. There's plenty to learn. And if you want me to personally do this for you and set these things up for you, because there's clearly a billion things running through my mind when I'm thinking about these scenarios, go to my website, romanoketo.com, okay? I have blogs there, I have free downloads there, and I'm doing consulting now, which is basically like a 1-hour consult call, follow-up emails between us for a couple months afterwards, and essentially I make your plan on the spot. The only thing is that you don't have me, messaging you every day, sending you voice notes every day, because that's what my premium coaching is for. Essentially, the consulting is like I set you up the plan, I make personal macros and everything, I tailor it to you after talking to you for an hour, and we get you set up. It's just that, hey, maybe you don't need somebody to hold you accountable all the time. Those other benefits of person-to-person coaching, right? So for a lot of people, I think that's going to be very beneficial because essentially, you get somebody who knows what they're doing it for 8 years, longer than that, training for longer than that, and essentially, I make it for you, I spell out everything. It's simply that I'm not there all the time as I am with my coaching clients, okay? And another thing too, I'm going to add group coaching, and I'm going to add an extra level to my one-on-one coaching where I'm going to even work out a way to get some of the supplements and recommendations and tools that I want people to use and include it in the package. So basically like a premium version of my one-on-one coaching where I ship you all the supplements as well. And it's going to increase the price a bit, but you're saving a shitload. And also I'm getting you products that realistically are only available in Canada. So either way, there is that. And some of them I've been able to get subsidized prices for, etc. Anyways, great values, great ways to keep going here, but continue watching these videos. Go to my playlists on whatever it is you're interested in, or type in your question plus my name to the YouTube search bar, okay? That's it. Thank you again. Go follow my Instagram, like this video, subscribe if you aren't already, if you're here already, And if you got to this point, you know what? Comment cheesy gordita crunch in the comments, just because that's my favorite meal from Taco Bell, and I really didn't think anybody would get to minute 30 on this video. So cheesy gordita crunch, it's my favorite one. All right, peace.